Welcome back. Today we need to continue our discussion of the French Revolution. Now, we already looked at 1789 and how this thing began, but what we haven't really looked at is what about the rest of it? The French Revolution isn't a simple event. It goes on for 32 years. It takes some very interesting turns. And at the end of it, people have to ask, was this a successful revolution? Was this an enlightened moment in history? Or was this a complete failure? And honestly, you could argue either way. The impact of it, success, failure, or otherwise, is going to be pretty vast. And so we have to understand this event. Now, what I've done is I've broken this into three time periods: the Revolution of Liberty, the Revolution of Equality, the Revolution of Stability. Now, these are not what most textbooks say. These are not what a lot of historians say. These are my way. This is my way of organizing it. So let me explain. And we start with this Revolution of Liberty. And by liberty, what we mean is opportunity. Despite your birth, the opportunity to seek out what you want. Not equality. Not everybody's equal. That everybody has equal opportunity. That no matter who you are, as long as you're white and male, you can rise up if you have the talent, ability, and money to get wherever you want. Screw everybody else. But it's not about your birth. And that's the key. And this is that 1789 event. This is that Tennis Court Oath. This is the National Assembly. And when the National Assembly convenes, they do a couple things. They write the Declaration of Rights of Man, which guarantees that those people's rights, that those people's ability to seek out property and wealth and health are guaranteed. It reads very similar to a document you're familiar with in this country as well. They write a constitution, 1791. They write a constitution which makes the king a constitutional monarch. He's still a king, he still has a lot of power, but his power is checked by a representative group of people. Not a representative group of nobles, but people. And finally, third, they retitle the monarchy, and this is huge. They retitle him King of the French. Historically, he's been known King of France. They call him King of the French. Now, that's important because he's no longer king of a place or an area. He's king of a people. And therefore, he is responsible to the people. It's ownership versus relationship. Property versus people. It's an important aspect. The final thing that they do that I want to talk about is they do this. They actually redraw the map of France. They essentially set up voting districts to get representatives into the National Assembly. And today we would call it gerrymandering, honestly. What they did is they drew the map so that individual nobles, these people who control all of the land, their land is divided up. That none of these correspond to one person's ownership as it did in years past. In fact, these were actually drawn or almost gerrymandered so that very few nobles would actually be elected. Because they're trying to take down these people's power and give the power to the quote-unquote people. So, that's what we have going on. But as this is happening, we also have a new movement kind of happening over these 3 years called the Revolution of Equality, or I call the Revolution of Equality. And it has to do with the fact that once people start getting rights, then more people want rights. At first, it's just the Declaration of Rights of Man, the Constitution, gives rights to the extremely wealthy people. But then everybody else starts wanting the artisans and the less wealthy people, the second wealth class. Some of them bankers and lawyers, they say, maybe we deserve this too. And in the National Assembly, there's a split over this. You have conservatives who more like kind of the king idea. You have the bulk in the middle who kind of likes this idea of the wealthy controlling things. They have a vested interest in the success of the nation. But then on the left, you have the liberals. Liberals wanting change. Right side of the room was the conservatives not wanting change. Yes, this is where we get that left and right term. And these people on the left start talking about equality. They started talking about everybody having rights, everybody having the ability to vote. There's a couple groups on the far left, just a small group, who are talking about like equal rights to everybody. One guy's even talking about women. Blowing your mind, right? Well, as that spreads, you have a group of these guys. They are calling themselves the sans-culottes, and they are one of many groups. But these sans-culottes are people who... Sans-culottes essentially means no pants or no knickers, or without knickers. And if you look at this guy here, this is a wealthy individual with culottes, or these pants that a wealthy individual would wear. But the common worker, and more importantly, the artisan, that second wealth class, doesn't wear those culottes. They wear long pants. And so the interesting thing about the sans-culottes is they take their name from their dress, but they become a political street gang. It becomes a group of people who wanders around Paris. These guys typically have jobs, so they do this in their spare time, wandering around Paris, harassing the bourgeois, or these wealthy individuals, and demanding that they should have the right to vote. No big deal. You see this? It's kind of weird, but what happens is there's a group of people in the National Assembly that call themselves the Jacobins. And these Jacobins ally themselves, think a political party, allied themselves with a street gang of the sans-culottes. And so now you have a political party in the government with a street gang on the streets of the capital of Paris who are supporting them and helping them get what they need done by using intimidation. Now you can imagine how weird this is. At the same time all of this is happening, the king flees the country, right? He tries to flee the country to go who knows where, maybe to raise an army. He's caught and brought back. He's actually jailed, and they take the power away from him, and now suddenly the king is not the king. He's still the king, but he has no power. And it's the National Assembly who's running everything. Well, again, you see more and more equality, more people getting power, and all of a sudden these people start rising up. They have their own little revolutions in Paris, in neighborhoods. They start barricading the streets and trying to fight and start a new revolution of different classes. Well, these little revolutions start happening every month and then every week, and then all of a sudden you see that the army is patrolling Paris constantly to try and put down all these little mini revolutions. A lot of them started by university and younger people. Well, 1792, not knowing what to do, then we start a revolution of equality. Because you have one of these Jacobins, one of these people who believes in equality, put the head of a committee of safety, just a committee within the National Assembly that is given power to keep the city under control. His name is Maximilien Robespierre. He's a dynamic 31-year-old politician, and he instates a zero-tolerance policy throughout the country. He essentially uses this power to weed out anybody who is quote-unquote going against the revolution. And to do that, he has a nice little technique. He puts you to death. There are mock trials. This is in which somewhere between 20,000 and 40,000 people are put to death. Minimum number, 13,000 people. But we think it was more around 30. Put to death for crimes against the revolution, for anybody who's trying to subvert the revolution. Now, that may be taking the revolution farther, that may be trying to work against the revolution, that may be supporting the king, but you can imagine, right, if this is happening and people are being tried for crimes against the revolution, that suddenly it's going to turn into a witch hunt where individuals are going to turn in friends, or more importantly, enemies, and sometimes political enemies. And what starts to happen is actually members of the National Assembly, members of the government, are going to be accused of subverting the revolution. They're going to be tried. They're going to be put to the guillotine. This is what we call the terror. And frankly, this is as much of the revolution as anything else. This idea of the purity and continuing the revolution in the name of greater equality. Well, eventually Robespierre will actually be tried for subverting the revolution, and his head will be chopped off in the guillotine. This will end the terror, but it doesn't end the period. You have another several years where you have this Committee of Public Safety, or now it's called the Directory, for 4 years, who will attempt to achieve stability amongst these little kind of constant rising up of individuals. These little mini revolutions or revolts will continue for 4 more years. Did I mention that France was at war this whole time? Because this is the funny thing. This entire time this is happening, France is at war. The army is actually waging a very successful war against other countries. Which brings us to the Revolution of Stability. Because in 1795, Napoleon Bonaparte will come forward. A man who's not even French. He is Corsican. He is not noble. What happens is the National Assembly makes the army the first kind of great wave of liberty. If you have the ability, you rise up the ranks. You are given ranks. Things are changed because of your ability, because of your merit, because of what you do. Previously, it was how much money did you have and were you noble. That was the only way to become an officer. Now it's merit-based. And this man was able to rise up through the ranks as an artilleryman and eventually a general. Now he, along with 3 others, seeing this chaos in Paris, realizing that they are truly popular, realizing that they have been waging this great war, decide to seize power for themselves. And they do. They take over the government. They are called the Council of 3. Please note the Roman connection. Eventually, the other 2 will step aside, and he will declare himself consul for life. And eventually, he will name himself emperor. This is Emperor Napoleon. That's the revolution. An emperor. The funny thing is, this is extremely popular. He is winning wars. He is successful. He is expanding the nation. And yet, he is controlling everything with an iron fist. All the decisions come down to him. But he instates a new law code called the Napoleonic Code, which is directly taken from Enlightenment thinking. It protects the natural rights of man. It gives individuals of merit, individuals of success, the ability to rise up. It declares representation. Now, it's not real representation because he's calling all the shots, but it gives the people who wanted these Enlightenment liberal values what they want. He's also an emperor who's controlling everything, which gives the people who like the king and the old royalists what they want. He's appealed to everybody. And in the end, his people never leave him. He is defeated by a foreign army, which takes him, gets rid of him after he has conquered everything you see. By the way, never attack Russia. It's just dumb. Just moving on. He is taken and removed down to this little place of Corsica. And in Corsica, he is left. The problem is, Corsica's right next... I'm sorry, not Corsica, Elba. He is in Elba. Well, Elba is off the coast of Italy. He simply returns. He marches an army. His people flock to him. The French flock back to him. They fight another war, and this time they send him to St. Helena in the middle of the South Atlantic to get rid of him. These other countries, Prussia, Sweden, Russia, England, don't want to kill him because they don't want to set a precedent that you can overthrow and kill a king. But they do want to get him out of power. Well, here's the thing. The French Revolution's been going on for 32 years. It has had the terror. It has had great success. It has had great failure. It ended with an emperor who was taken down by another power. And what do? At the end of that government, what do? The National Assembly reformed, and they put this man in power. His name is Louis the 18th. He is Louis the 16th brother. After all this, after 32 years of fighting for independence, they turn around and they put the king, whose head they chopped off to secure liberty and a representative government, they put his brother back in power as a king, a constitutional monarch, but a king just the same. And you have to ask, did they achieve anything? We'll find out soon.